You're listening to the Paul Higgins podcast for SaaS consulting partners ready to scale beyond six figures without more work or a bigger team. Let's dive in. If you're struggling to stay ahead of the AI revolution while everyone else seems to be drinking from the fire hose, this episode cuts through the noise for you. Hello, this is Paul, and welcome to my podcast, the Paul Higgins podcast, episode 630, and this is an absolute blinder today. In this episode, I talked to Isar Meitis from multiplai.ai. So it's multiplai.ai. We'll have all the links in the show notes. And you're going to learn a lot, but you will in particular learn from Isar is why small businesses are actually falling behind their enterprises in AI adoption despite what everyone predicted, and the real bandwidth constraints holding them back and how you can help them. The strategic shift from the cost-saving AI tactics to revenue-generating AI strategies and why leadership buy-in determines everything. And finally, how the MCP protocol is creating a USB-like connection between AI and your existing tech stack. So if you're a Salesforce partner, HubSpot partner, etc. And this is eliminating the need for massive development teams. Today's guest is Isar Meitis, and he's a former F-16 pilot turned four-time CEO with a track record in B2B and B2C services, defense, and e-commerce. Isar scaled one of his businesses to $100 million. He knows a thing or two about business strategy and scaling. Isar is here to provide you with a rare combination of knowledge and real-world experience in AI and business growth. He's also the host of the AI Leveraging podcast, which I never miss, and you're going to absolutely love today's episode. It's a little longer than normal, but it's worth every second. Isar, fantastic to have you here.
It's great to be here. I'm excited. It's going to be really fun.
Yeah, well, look, I'll mention it several times on the podcast, but for you that are listeners and for you that are close to me on LinkedIn, you know that I've talked about Isar many times, and I've promoted his fantastic podcast, the Leveraging AI podcast, and we'll have links in the show notes. So that's where I first came across his work, and he is the person that I listen to more about AI than anything else. So we're going to sort of go a little bit more towards adding value for you today, but highly recommend you go and subscribe and reach out to him and say that you heard him on this podcast. But why don't we kick off with who your ideal clients are and what problems you love to solve for them?
So my ideal clients are small and medium business leaders, usually top management, but sometimes middle management as well, that are looking for ways to integrate AI into their businesses. I do have some really large clients, but they are a few and random. Like when I say large, it's like enterprises in the billions, but I have two of those, and most of the others are either tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars between, I would say, 30 to 300 employees. That's probably the sweet spot, that are looking to implement AI in their businesses and are struggling to understand how to do that. The other not surprising group, but they are a smaller group by a big spread, is solopreneurs who are trying to understand how to keep up with this madness.
Yeah, well, look, a lot of you sit in the latter, not the former, but you've got the former as clients. So I think there's a perfect blend there. And is there any logical place or any pattern where you're seeing where AI kicks off in a 300, well, let's say a 30-person organization as an example?
What do you mean by? So I'm not sure I understand what
Yeah, so
is
it marketing led? Is it operations led? Finance led? Like where's it sort of impetus coming from?
It's leadership led. And so what happens is if somebody at senior leadership is saying, yes, this is something that we got to do, or somebody close enough to leadership that is understanding what's happening and can push that agenda through leadership, then it happens. So it's really very different in each and every one of my clients.
Yes.
It's not like there's one aspect of the business that is driving it. And it's always, I'll actually reverse it. It's only successful when senior leadership is bought in. I always say that there's two things that are the major key drivers of AI implementation success. One is leadership buy-in. And when I say leadership, it's like top leadership, CEO, C-suite people. And the second is continuous education. If you don't have both, your AI implementation will fail. And I'm saying that sadly because I've seen both, but that's the reality. So if senior leadership is bought in, this thing is incredible. And if it's not, then it's going to be a grind by somebody who's trying to promote it that will probably have to face the realities of, the leadership has bigger fish to fry at that point, and it's just not going to catch enough wind to move forward.
Yeah, and without asking a dead obvious question, I'll try to rephrase it. But what are the tell signs that you look for to make sure that the leaders are truly committed? Like there's obvious ways, but have you found any non-obvious ways where you really get to that quickly?
It's very hard to explain ugly, but you know it when you see it. It's the same thing the other way around. But if the CEO is there in every meeting and he is showing you stuff that he is doing,
Yes.
and he's excited to learn more, and he builds excitement in the company around him of people who are interested, and they're building a committee, and the committee meets regularly, meaning the CEO makes sure that they meet regularly, and he gives them the time on the calendar, and there's priorities for training, and there's priorities for budgets for tools, and there's priorities for IT infrastructure. It's very, very obvious when
Yes.
there's buy-in versus, yes, let's run a course and we'll see what happens afterwards. Which, by the way, is better than doing nothing. but
Yes.
it's it's very, very clear when this is a priority, then it's a priority, and when it's not, it's a side project by somebody who is in charge of it, and that's it.
Yes. And I suppose weaving back to the question before, is there any particular launch point after the leadership and the committee, et cetera? Does it go into any particular function? Like, are you seeing more traction in marketing, for example, versus other areas?
It very much depends on the company. I'm not going to name names, but two of my bigger clients are known brands that are manufacturers of stuff.
Yes.
So for them, it's operations by a big
Yes.
spread
Yes.
because that's the core of the business. And and there's so much. I literally just got the report. We do a quarterly report. So I got the quarterly report for Q2 with just the stuff that we created with multiple small teams. Every single one of these little mini projects that we created saves them between 2 hours a day to 2 hours a week,
Yes.
depending on one of those things. And there's probably 20 of these projects in the past quarter.
Yes.
And if I had to look at those, there's one in marketing, one in finance, one in HR, everything else is operations. So another, I don't know, 10 other projects are all around operations. And that means a lot of stuff, right? A lot of it is data related. So that's obviously a big one. So if I had to
Yes.
put a big bucket, data is a big bucket. And then the data could be different things. But then I have other companies where a lot of it is marketing, or I have companies who are software companies. So it's product design, software engineering, QA. So I think it very much depends on what is on the critical path of the company
Yes.
and also which are the biggest bottlenecks.
Yes.
And so it's industry dependent, but also company specific dependent on where they're struggling at that point. They're stopping them from growing. And then you tackle that first.
Right. And is it more, as you said, is it more bottleneck versus return on investment, revenue generation? Is it bottleneck, fix that first and then go to revenue generation? In other words, if you're following the P&L, is it cost out before revenue up?
I think in many cases, bottlenecks could be revenue up, right? It
Mm.
just depends on what the bottleneck is. Like if your bottleneck is production and you can solve that by understanding how to get your materials faster, then you can make more, you make more money. If
Yes.
your bottleneck is in marketing and you can drive the cost down and increase distribution, there isn't one clear line that says when it's cost saving and when it's revenue generating. I'm trying to think hard whether I can say which one it's more. I think people start usually more with cost savings.
Yes.
I think once you have, going back to the leadership aspect of it, once you can have serious strategic conversation with leadership, and they understand the potential other aspect of it, then there's a very big change. And I think the leaders in those companies, and if your audience is mostly consultant, they need to be at the ears of those leaders,
Yes.
have to understand that things are going to dramatically change in many industries, not all of them, but many
Yes.
industries. I would be careful, but I will say most industries.
Yes.
And because of that, they need to start asking strategic questions. And if you want, we can dive into that. If you don't want, we don't have to dive into that. But those strategic questions are going to impact the future of their business. And it goes way beyond, can they save 2 hours a week on marketing and or finance and or operations?
Yeah, look, I think it's a really good point. One of the things that I wrote down here prepping for the interview was strategic versus tactical AI. And, I see a lot of AI and people, often say to me, well, will the companies themselves dabble in it or will they get an expert, a consultant in, right? And I'm like, I don't know the answer, but I know typically the ones that dabble are the ones that waste time tactically and then realize they should have done it strategically in the first place, which is no different to any business that I've worked in across my, 30-year careers. Is that what you're seeing? Is that, the ones that are truly invested are also the ones looking at it strategically rather than, like you said, how can we get, a saving on a newsletter that no one's reading as an example?
Yeah, I think it's a mix, and I think it depends. And I'm sorry I'm not giving you clear answers, but that's the reality. I think what's happening is, first of all, something that surprised me completely when I dove all into this, which was in late 22 when ChatGPT came out, because I was playing with AI a little bit before that, but nothing
Yes.
serious. I very quickly thought that what's going to happen is small and medium businesses are going to run circles around enterprises because enterprises move slow, small businesses move fast. They'll be able to do incredible things that will be able to compete with the big companies on a
Yes.
much, much, much smaller budget. The reality is this is happening mostly in companies that were built in the last 2.5 years that basically said, this is the way forward. We're going to build an AI-centric business and we're going to run circles around the big boys. And it's definitely happening.
Yes.
The flip side is actually there's significantly more investment and progress in larger companies today than there is in smaller businesses, which was a huge surprise to me.
Yeah, why is
And
that?
I think the reason for that is bandwidth, both from a human resource perspective as well as from a budget perspective. An enterprise can go and throw, and depending how big the enterprise, but between millions to tens of millions to billions on an AI initiative, understanding that that's going to decide their positioning in a new market. A small business, even if it's 200 people, is usually sliced pretty thin.
Yes.
They cannot spin up a AI department with 50 people. It's just not
Yes.
happening in a 200 people organization. They
Yes.
cannot spin up a department of 20 people or
Yes.
of 10.
Yes.
They will hire one of you two people if they're really invested.
Yes.
One or two people are limited with what they can do with AI across a 200 people company. If you're smaller, if you're a 50 people company, it becomes even more complicated. And so I think what's happening is that the bigger the company, the more strategic the leadership can be just because of the way the company works. If you're in a senior leadership position in a company that does hundreds of millions of billions, most of what you do is strategy.
Yes.
And there's 3 layers behind you is dealing with the day-to-day.
Yes.
If you're in a 50 people company, if you're the CEO, you're dealing with the day-to-day. Maybe not all the time, maybe it's not all you do, but it's a lot of what you do. And so the bandwidth you have, both from your mental capacity, from an IT perspective, from a money cash flow perspective, from an HR perspective, is limited. And then you usually deal with the fires of today, which sadly with AI is now the fires of last week, not just yesterday. But you can't see that because you're in that. And your ability to go and say, if I don't take action related to the AI impact on my industry, I will not have a business in 2 years. Forget about deal with the day-to-day stuff. I will just not have a business where can take care of my family, but I also take care of the families of everybody I'm employing. Then you're going to be in very, very serious trouble very, very soon. And yet, I think most people don't understand that.
No, and I think you often talk about this on your podcast. Once again, it's Leveraging AI podcast. And, you talk about that. Oh, what was that example you gave where there's some of the key players in the AI space and they asked, is this going to be better or worse for humanity? Those effects. And then where do people go? And I think from memory, the key platform players actually went to it's going to be worse for humanity than what the general crowd did. I don't know if I got the context right, but give me your quick summation on that.
We have what, 3, 4 hours? How long do we have to
Yeah, true,
to
true.
chat about this? This is a very tricky question, right? I think the biggest problem is that nobody knows, right? That's my biggest fear, is that the people that are driving, I used to say driving the train, it's driving these spaceships are accelerating like crazy, they don't know. They actually, most of them say this is going to be awesome for humanity. But when they get asked the tough questions, the only answers they have is, well, we always figured it out in the past. We'll figure it out this time as well. That's their answer.
Yes.
Like humanity always figured it out. We always got better after every revolution that happened, which is true, right? If you go back not that long ago, 300 years, most people were living in poverty or below and working their asses off and dying at the age of 55,
Yes.
if they were lucky. Today, most people live, even the people who feel that they're not doing great, are living an incredible life compared to 99% of the population 300 years ago. And it's all because of the agriculture revolution and then the industrial revolution and then the technology and then computers and then mobile. Like every one of those actually made us better. I think there are two major differences between that and the current revolution. One is speed. Agricultural revolution was a few hundred years. The industrial revolution was 200 years. The computer revolution was 50 years, right? The internet revolution between when it started to today is 20 years. Like in the beginning, it was very, very slow. The example I always like to use, and stop me if I'm going too deep into that particular topic. I remember the first night I connected to the internet vividly because it was a very underwhelming experience. My roommate at the time brought in this thing to our apartment and he said, look what I got us. I'm like, what is this? It's a modem. Like, okay, what does it do? He said, it's going to connect us to the internet. I'm like, okay, what is that? And he's like, well, it's the new thing. Like this, we got to be ahead of it. And we're like, okay, so, there was no Google, so you actually got to read the manual. So we go step by step and we connect the thing and it goes, and those of you who do not know what I'm talking about, those are not, go Google that. And then about 2 minutes later, it pops up a little window and there's a prompt little triangle in the top left corner and that's it. Like we didn't know what to do then. And that was the first time I connected to the internet. That was 93.
Yes.
I got my first email address. Forget about all this. I have the world on my phone today and I can see satellite imagery of your house if I want to in real time right now from my phone. I got my first email address when I went backpacking in South America in 99.
Yes.
That's 6 years between the time I got connected to the internet for the first time to the first time I got an email address.
Yes.
That's a very long time. The AI stuff moves in days and weeks. Our ability to figure things out and fix and plan and prepare is just not there. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is that every previous revolution removed some kind of manual labor and allowed us to use our brain more to do more stuff. This revolution takes away that. It takes away our thinking. It's going to outthink us. So the stuff that helped us benefit from every previous revolution is going to actually be against us in this particular one.
Yeah.
And so go ahead. Sorry.
No, sorry. I was just going to say the only thing. So I heard the founder of Jasper speak about what his view on this. And like you said, everyone's got a view. No one's clear on it, right? Even the guys that are running the spaceship, don't know where the map's taking them. But he was saying that, like in China, for example, the aging population, they just can't replace the physical roles that used to be there. So robots will do that. So I think, what we're seeing at the moment is definitely the white collar change in thinking, etc. But I think then there will also be a wave, what Elon Musk's prediction, you'll have, 1.6 robots or whatever it is every household will have soon. So I think that's coming. But look, I totally agree. The speed is amazing. But the great thing is that if you're a tech consultant or an AI consultant listening to this, you're at the cutting edge of that, right? And you've got not just a responsibility to your family, et cetera, to look after them and make money and for the future generations, your generations, but you've got a responsibility to help bring this to the clients. So I think it's, it's an amazing time. And I remember back in 93 when mobile phones first came out and I was a Coke rep. Short story, my dad was senior there and everyone thought that, I shouldn't got a job. I did. I kept winning all the results and they couldn't understand why. And all I did was went and bought my own mobile phone, and just said to the store, you call me when the stock arrives and I'll put it up, right? So I used that innovation. That was in 93. And a guy came in and he said, look, this is what I predict in the future. Because, Coke always had the best brains in the world working for them, right? So this guy from, I think it was Stanford or something, came over and he said, look, you'll be opening your mobile phone, will be opening your car. He sort of took us through an airport experience. This is what the mobile phone, and most of the people in the room are like, that'll never happen. I'm like, that's the world I want to be in. I think that will happen. And you look at it now, we're there, right? I think the hard thing is that none of us can predict where we're going to be. Like you said, even in 5 years' time, well, what are we going to be? I suppose we can't predict it, but let's go back to today's world for a moment.
May I add one
Yeah,
thing,
sure.
though,
Sure, Isaac. Yeah.
which I think is the critical subtext of what you said?
Yes.
We know for certain what it's not going to be. And it's not going to be what it is right now. I think the people that are taking action in the right direction, and yes, you might be 30% off course, but you're not 180% off course, which means you're going in the wrong direction. Doing what you did through the past 5 years, 10 years, 20 years is the wrong thing to do in most industries. I'm not saying it's in all of them, but
Yes.
in most industries, taking action, trying to understand, to quote Wayne Gretzky, try to understand where the puck is going
Yes.
and try to skate there is critical because it's coming very, very fast and it's going to have profound implications on more or less everything we know. And if you're moving in that direction, you will develop the muscles that will allow you to adapt to whatever is coming.
Yes.
If you wait to see how it evolves, it is most likely going to be too late for you to take action when it does evolve the next step. And so while we don't know exactly where it's going to go, going in the general direction and going there as fast as you can is the right thing to do.
Yeah. The one thing that really surprised me with, like, when I was at Coke, we, get an SAP implementation. It cost, for us, we were basically an Asian based business, and it was like, 70, $80 million. And most of that was in licensing and CapEx spend, not a lot of it in people, right? I think what you're saying, and, I want you to validate this, is a lot of it's in OpEx spend at the moment, which is people, rather than the licensing costs, etc., of the technology. Have I got that right?
In smaller businesses, absolutely. In smaller businesses, it's going back to the difference between the enterprises that are investing stupid amounts of money in infrastructure.
Yes.
For smaller businesses, that's not required.
Yes.
What is required is training and retraining and skilling and upskilling of employees and figuring out an internal mechanism and how to do this. I don't know if until the end of time, but in the foreseeable future, because this thing is moving and changing and evolving very, very fast. So you probably need, if you're on a consultant, you need to be the one bringing this to the company, but you need to build mechanisms within the company to be able to do this on their own because it makes sense. And I know as a consultant, it does not make sense, but this is what I do with all my clients. I teach them how to do it on their own because they're not going to hire you forever. And if you can, the best way to serve them is to teach them how to do it on their own and move on to the next company. Or if they want to keep you as part of the team. So with many of my clients, we've already established an AI, some kind of a centralized body, call it whatever you want to call it, and an AI training officer and an AI technical specialist and so on and so forth. We have that in place. And yet I'm still a part of the AI committee. You still appreciate my inputs, but more and more things are happening independent of me. And I think that's the right approach as a consultant right now. And if you can continuously be ahead of them and give them more value, they will probably keep you there.
Yeah, correct. And, if you look at, in our world, back when I was at Coke, marketing agencies made a huge amount of money in fudging the numbers, right? They said it took this amount of time to do it and charge you exorbitant prices when it took a lot less. Like, that's all transparent now. So you can't fudge the numbers these days, right? So I think, therefore, yes, ethical consulting has always been the right thing to do, but I think it's even more so in this space, which I echo your thoughts. I think the other one, which I think I don't know if they've missed a beat, but I love the fact that it's endless what I can do for $20 US a month for most of the platforms, right? Which is brilliant. Because in the old days, Coke could afford to have, the sales forces, et cetera, of the world. The small companies couldn't. So therefore, we always had an advantage over the smaller ones. Today, I think the brilliant thing is that if you're a consultant, they've already paid for the tools. So, and it's a very low expense when you look at what the total capital costs are of the platform. And certainly when you look at a Salesforce license or a HubSpot license, ChatGPT or a Claude license is next to nothing. And for me personally, the value I get out of it is exponential versus what I do out of my CRM license. So I think that's all the opportunities. But on that bent, like the companies that you're saying that are the 30 to 300 people, how's this integrating into their core tech stack? So if you look at, whether it's Salesforce, HubSpot, NetSuite, how is the AI component crossing over that at the moment from what you're experiencing?
Yeah, so a lot of it depends on how strong their IT team and IT infrastructure is to begin with.
Yes.
The ones that have a slightly more solid, less antiquated or convoluted tech stack can move a little faster, or if they have the right people in place. A lot of companies will or do need to make some significant changes in order to move forward fast. Some of our clients are. They're replacing old CRMs, they're replacing old ERPs, they're replacing stuff like that.
Yes.
It's not an easy task. It's a pain, you know where, but it's a necessity if you want to benefit from the connection to AI. But I would say from a step-by-step perspective, the easiest step one is to build AI tools that can get static inputs. So
Yes.
you can export a CSV file out of more or less anything, like any SaaS platform that you have today, whether it's your customer service ticketing system, your CRM, your ERP, your financial system,
Yes.
each and every one of them can export a CSV file. AI tools today are very good at consolidating, aggregating, and manipulating data.
Yes.
And as long as these data sets, either you build it for this one tool just to give you more insights, or the bigger magic is if you combine a few tools together. So you
Yes.
take your Salesforce data and you combine it with your ticketing system data, and then you can see how much money is that client actually making you versus how much cost is associated with supporting them.
Yes.
And with every single time I ran it with companies, like, oh my God, these clients that we thought are amazing for us are actually not making us that much money because they're opening 6x tickets than anybody else.
Yes.
And so the cost of supporting them is significantly higher. And so you find out all these things when you can cross data. If you're a software company and you look at how much bugs you're solving for a specific client or a specific sector versus the revenue versus, like, you can suddenly connect dots that were very hard to connect before. And you can literally do it by simply dragging and dropping CSV files into a template that you built in Claude that you can use again and again and again. And it will give you dashboards and visuals and summaries and a report, like everything you want as far as the output. So this is always step one.
Yes.
Step two is going to make.com, Zapier, NA10, choose your poison, right? Whichever one you want. And then you can start doing this automatically, or at least some of those steps. So then it gets the data, it drops it in a place, it grabs it from there, it connects the dots, it sends you the file, it posts it wherever, like all these steps that were manually done in the beginning, which I suggest doing because it will help you develop the right process and troubleshoot it with before you have to troubleshoot the automation. But then automating it is relatively easy. And now the final magic that was given to us by Anthropic about 6 months ago is called MCP. What MCP does, and I'm not going to dive into technicalities too much, but what it does is it gives, I'll go back for a second. If you think about it, why did Anthropic do what they did, right? So Anthropic said, okay, there's now AI everything. There's AI agents, there's AI chats, there's AI vector databases, all this stuff. So, and all the software that exists in the world. How many clients? You said Salesforce and HubSpot. How many clients does Salesforce have in the world? Probably millions.
Yes.
Every one of them, every single one of them is going to develop a connectivity between their AI tool to Salesforce, which means around the world, there's going to be millions of developers trying to connect Salesforce to an AI tool. And the same thing with every other tool in the world. There's a huge waste of resources because they're doing the same thing.
Yes.
So basically, what they said is, what if we develop a middle layer that connects to the AI? The plug is a universal plug. You plug it and it works. On the back end, it can connect to any tool in the world through its standard API. But you develop that plug once, and then the back end of it can plug to whatever you want. The best example that I have in the world today is USB, right? You can plug more or less anything with a USB into a computer today. So the USB side is USB. The other side could be a microphone, could be a light, could be another computer, could be a monitor, could be many different things. So it's the same exact thing. You can connect an MCP server of more or less any software now on the planet, and if not, in the next 6 months, it will be, to any AI tool with 4 lines of code that you can download off the internet. And now you have access to all the data that was exposed to the MCP server. So they don't have to expose everything, but all the data that was exposed, which means now, and you can now do this in ChatGPT, you can do it in Claude, you can do it in agent tools, you can do it in NA10, you can very easily.
Yes.
Which means going back to the transition, you start with static files, you build an automation, and in step 3, you can actually access live data without having a team of developers developing it for you, and with a relatively simple setup. Now, there's no magic. It's not going to suddenly overnight, oh, now you're going to bang your head against the wall and things are not going to work. But within days to weeks of effort, you can have real-time data access with your AI tools to your existing company tech stack. This is magic Like, it's nothing short of that. It's just incredible that somebody without a development team can now have, from a chat user interface, access to their CRM, ERP, ticketing system, financial, like whatever you want, and external other tools. Like, you can now go to other tools that maybe you couldn't afford before. And I'll say, I'm not going to buy the tool. I'm going to pay them tokens to get access to their data that now talks to my data, that now can give me more insights and so on. And this is possible today at any company.
Yes.
And so this is the journey.
What did Google just launch this week? Because Google have launched their own version, but it's not solving the gap Anthropic solved. It's solving a gap for something else. I don't know if it's video or photos, but Google have just launched something this week which is similar. It's a universal. Your example, it's a USB, but it's not just for that. Anyway, I'll find it and I'll put it in the show notes. But as you said, like, we could talk for 3 or 4 hours, right? This has been a joy. Remember to go and please listen to Leveraging AI podcast. We're going to have the link in the show notes, etc. The last question before we go into the rapid fire I want to ask you is, if you are a Salesforce partner, HubSpot partner, Monday partner, you're a consultant that is predominantly doing AI training in mid-sized businesses like you are, one of the dark clouds hanging over is like they won't need you. They won't need you. They'll basically just have their own, model. They'll be able to ask the model questions. They won't need you. What's your view on that darkest view of how consulting is going to play out?
Oof. Okay. I'll try to give the bright side and the dark side because I don't know which way it's going to go. But the bright side is and this time I'm going to quote Marge Simpson. So we went from Wayne Gretzky to Marge Simpson. But Marge Simpson, in one of the episodes, she wants to be a piano teacher. And Homer says, but you can't play the piano. How are you going to be a piano teacher? She said, I only need to be one lesson ahead of the students.
Yes.
As long as a consultant, you will be ahead of the company, you can always provide value to them. And so you don't have to be the most knowledgeable AI person in the world. You just have to be more knowledgeable than the companies you consult to. And I think it's going to be a while until everybody figures everything out. And there is no everything because this keeps on evolving. So as long as you evolve faster than them, they will need you to an extent, maybe less than today. So that's the positive side.
Yes.
The negative side is, I think in general, the model of hourly pricing is dead.
Yes.
Now, it's not dead yet. It's just dying very, very fast. And the reason is everybody will understand that this thing that used to take 37 hours now takes 37 minutes.
Yes.
And they're going to say, well, we're not going to pay you for 37 hours. We're going to pay you for 37 minutes. And you cannot pay the bills with 37 minutes. And so I think, and by the way, I hated the consulting model my entire life, including now that I'm a consultant for the last 2.5 years. I think it's the dumbest business model in the world because it's a lose-lose for both sides. But we're not going to dive into this. But the good news is, if you quickly understand how to turn your offering into value offering versus hourly offering, and to be fair, if you can convince your clients to work based on that model, everybody wins.
Yes.
You will give them more value, they will pay you more money, and nobody will care whether it took you 6 seconds or 3 years to do the thing. If you can grow their revenue by 10%, and that 10% is $3 million, there's no reason why they wouldn't pay you $100,000.
Correct. And I love the quick analogy I love is where the plumber turns up to the Coke factory, the water's coming out of the pipes, can't run the production plant, and the guy says, I fixed it, it's $25,000. And he goes, what do you mean $25,000? You were here for 2 seconds. He goes, well, you want me to turn it back off again? Right. And so it's all about that value. And look, I constantly talk about the 3 Ps. One is you've got to position yourself right. So if you're talking as if you're a Zoho partner only in the future, that's also going to die, right? A death. Like, you've got to position yourself correctly to the right niche, The next is you've got to productize it. Like you said, you've got to actually talk about the value that you provide. And the third thing is the performance. And that performance, you won't need as many people because you'll have all these digital people doing things for you. So you'll be more effective than what you can do. So I'm with you. I think it's more sunshine than rain. But look, who knows? But I know that if you listen, once again, to Leveraging AI podcast, you're going to be ahead of the game and you're going to find that out. What we're going to do is just pause for a moment, thank our sponsors, and then we'll come back to the rapid fire. Brilliant execution, terrible strategy. You can solve any client problem, but you're stuck in the same revenue patterns, same deal sizes, same time for money trap. I'm Paul, and I built and sold a 7-figure consulting business, but here's what I've learned mentoring other consultants. The real breakthroughs happen when you combine my experience with live problem solving of people going through exactly what you're facing now. In my group program, Steve works through his VA delegation challenge with Jed. Jed shares what's actually working. Andrew tests his pricing strategy with Casey, and Casey demonstrates his client onboarding system. Everyone's figuring it out together with my guidance based on what I learned the hard way. It's not theory, it's real-time strategic thinking with consultants in the trenches plus someone who's already made the journey. Stop grinding alone. Start thinking strategically. Go to paulhigginsmentoring.com/WWM. That's paulhigginsmentoring.com/WWM. All right, Isar, we've got 4 questions, and these are literally rapid fire. In Australia, we call it a sip of beer. So the first one is, what's a tool that's really blown your mind of late? I know it's a bit like picking your favorite child, but what's something that's really taken your attention of late?
Recently, VO3. VO3 blew my mind when it came out. Its ability to generate really high quality video, understanding what you mean with a relatively short prompt, and give you a stunning video with voice background, with a conversation of people, was out of the regular growth that you see between all these tools. So it literally blew me away when it came out.
Brilliant.
It seems a long time ago, but it's like 3 weeks.
And what's the most underrated channel that you see for gaining new clients?
Having a podcast.
Yeah.
It's people don't know that. I would guess, and I don't know for you, I would guess for me, it's probably 95% of the clients that I get, if you trace back 2 or 3 steps, goes back to the podcast.
Quickly, yesterday, someone reached out to me because they'd heard they were following a Salesforce partner, looked at what other podcasts they're on, then they heard one with me, and they called me up and said, we need to work together, right? Podcast, the joy of podcasts. Where do you go more to find out about AI? Because I know that you're sharing a lot, but where do you go?
It's a mix of a lot of things. So I follow different people on X. I follow different people on YouTube. I have curated my Google News feed to be 100% AI. Yep. And the way you do this, you pick a little of stuff manually. It doesn't really allow you to do much, but then you actually read the articles that you care about, and it slowly weeds out all the other ones. Yes. And so my entire Google News feed right now is AI stuff. So that is very, very helpful. I listen to a few other podcasts as well. Shows like the AI Daily Brief gives me a lot of cool information. Shows like the companies, the AI Marketing Institute.
It's, so AI Explored with Michael Stelzner.
Yeah. Yep. No, not Michael Stelzner one. It's Paul Reutzer and Mike Kaput.
We'll find it. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of podcasts that I listen to regularly, a few YouTube videos, but a lot of it is being curious and exploring. So when I hear something, either in a conversation with somebody like you or somebody of my clients mention something, I will open the tab, I will take the thing, and I will say something, what, maybe it's more important than the channel. I have 4 hours a week on my calendar that are sacred for experimentation. 2 on Monday, 2 on Friday.
Yeah.
Where I will look at a new tool. I will try to understand a new process. I will figure out an automation. I will do something like this. And if you don't have those on the calendar, it's just not going to happen. And that's the best way I learn.
Yeah, brilliant. And the last thing, you've been in this for 2.5 years, but you've been obviously very successful in business for a lot longer. But in AI specifically, what do you wish you had have known that you know now?
That you have to get your hands dirty.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Just listening to other people, watching YouTube videos and so on, you're not going to make progress. I mean, you will, it's just going to be minuscule. So you have to, hence my 4 hours a week. I didn't start that when I started. I started that a year in. I would have been way ahead if I would have started with experimenting very early on.
Brilliant. Well, it's been wonderful having you on. I love the podcast. You can also go to the links to find out more about the training. I know there's new training coming out, which is an advanced session in September. There's training in August, which you've just missed. Isar is always putting something out that is right at the cutting edge. So we'll have the links in there so you can follow him. But once again, thanks a lot for coming on and entertaining our audience today.
Thank you so much. This was a fantastic conversation. I appreciate you and I appreciate what you're doing. And if you're listening, pull up your phone right now, click on the a recommendation button, send it to a few people, give him a 5-star review, Paul, for his amazing work on whatever platform, whether you're on Spotify or on Apple. I'm sure he would appreciate that. That's your way to give value back to the people who are podcasting, is by doing that. So do that for Paul.
Thank you. As Isar said, you need to be only one lesson ahead of the clients, not the world's leading AI expert. And I love this analogy there. The consulting model is shifting from hourly to value-based, and those who adapt the fastest will thrive while others get left behind. If you want to stay ahead of the AI revolution, subscribe to Isar's Leveraging AI podcast. It's where I go to keep up to date with what's actually happening versus the hype that you see on TikTok. And also join his Friday AI Hangouts at 1 p.m. Eastern Time in the US, and check out his advanced AI automation course that's going to be launching in September. You can watch this fantastic episode at the Paul Higgins Mentoring channel on YouTube, and I'll see you next time on the Paul Higgins podcast. If you've got value today, hit subscribe so you don't miss future episodes, and reach out. Let me know you've listened. I'd love to hear from you.